It has been a while. It's been about 5 months exactly since I've posted my last podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Justin Hall. A lot of you guys may know me from Married at First Sight San Diego. Welcome to my podcast. Let's talk men and emotions. Today we have a special guest. Special guest will be Caitlin Sutton, health coach. Today, Caitlin will be going over some questions regarding the diagnosis of the discovery of my Klinefelter syndrome. Caitlin was actually the one who discovered it. So a lot of people, since announcing that I've had Klinefelter, a lot of people have been asking a lot of questions. So I think that she's going to cover all of that. And here we go. Hey, Caitlin.
Hey, babe. How's it going?
Going well. How are you doing?
Thank you for the intro.
Yes,
Doing
yes.
well.
It went really well. I introduced you, but I'll go ahead and let you introduce yourself and what you do, and from there, go ahead.
All right. My name's Caitlin Sutton, and I am an intuitive, holistic guide. I might sound a little weird, but I communicate more with people's bodies or any messages that might come out for me. And yeah, I mean, obviously, my relationship with Justin's a special one. So there was some unique accessibility there in order to support him. So yeah.
I appreciate that. Thank you. So
Yeah.
if you guys don't know, we will be talking about the discovery of Klinefelter syndrome. It was a very recent discovery about myself that I discovered. I was living undiagnosed for about 34 years. Um, and so Caitlin is going to ask a lot of questions, and I'm just going to really answer them. I'm going to be as honest and genuine as possible. Some questions might be uncomfortable, but I'm going to do my best to answer them with the best of my ability. So, with that being said, Ms. Sutton, would you like to take the lead here?
I'll be easy on you. Don't worry. I won't make it too
Ooh, I'm
formal.
sweating, girl. Let me tell you.
First of all, I'm kind of recovering from I guess, an allergy. So my voice is a little weird, or if I cough, that's what's going on. But yeah, so let's just start right off and say, I think a good place for people to kind of hear from you is, what was really going on for you when, after the first low result for the total testosterone, and then I know what was going on for me to kind of plan to tell you and kind of gently, with respect, kind of say, hey, I think it's this syndrome. What came up for you? What was going on?
Are you asking when you initially brought it up?
Yeah, like, hey, I think you have. Do you remember the day? Do you remember
Yeah.
around the time? Yeah.
hmm So, initially when you brought it to my attention, I was definitely offended. Uh, because where I come from, well, it's not necessarily where I come from, but it was something I never heard of, and I was just like, I would know if something was wrong with me. Like, I take care of myself. I don't go to the doctor as often, but I listen to my body, as far as like what it's telling me and what to do. So when you was coming to me, I really thought you was just doing, doing what white people do, just always trying to diagnose, and realistically, that's what it felt like. I don't mean that to be offensive, but that's what it felt like. In the South, you always have, African Americans being told, or being diagnosed by somebody, that's Caucasian. So that's kind of what it felt like. And I was just like, man, this girl don't know what she's talking about. Like, I would know if something like this was, off. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you shared this on the first interview you did about this, but that you kind of said that all Black people don't have that, right? And so
Yeah.
as a practitioner, also your partner, and a white woman, there's definitely a lot to try to I don't say manage, 'cause it's not mine to manage, but allow to kind of happen in that.
Mhm.
And I think that you did, an amazing job with, processing that. And it wasn't easy, I'm sure. And it took a few kind of instances to finally get to a place of where you are now, which is, where are you now with having the diagnosis and everything? Like, can you explain to everyone, like, just, we're talking kind of emotionally sense
Yeah.
and medical, like, where were you then and where are you now with it?
You know, initially when, I got the results back, I remember being at work, and when, I got the message and I looked through my scripts app, and, it said XXY, and really what I felt right there was almost like a sense of relief, you know, um, because although, like I said before, I felt like nothing was wrong with me, but to understand why life has been so challenging for me, so hard, it was just like, oh wow, this is really real. It was almost like a reality check for me, but at the same time, a weight was lifted because I'm like, oh, okay. So what I thought was my normal life, it wasn't my normal life. Meaning life is going to get better. So I was really excited, but at the same time, I was scared because, doing research on being on testosterone replacement therapy, like my body has been, craving for that for 34 years. And so I wasn't sure how my body was going to, react to it. I was nervous because I knew my physical appearance was going to change. I knew my skin was going to change. I knew that parts of, my emotions was going to change, and it has, and so that's kind of how I felt in the beginning. And then now, since living with it, I love that I have it. I know that's weird saying, but it makes me unique. I've always felt like I was unique anyway, but it answers a lot of questions because, all my life people would say, you have a very unique look. And I'm just like, what does that mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, but no, now I'm proud that I have it because life has been so much better. It's like my body is just calm every single day and not in fight or flight. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Speaking of that, I remember, kind of explaining to you that kind of the way you had been living your life, and especially if people are watching this and seeing you on the show, you were kind of let's say a Ferrari in the sense of, especially, if you're young or whatever, 18-year-old
mhm,
guy, 17-year-old guy, um, right at the time in which that development would happen for non-Klinefelter's men. It's like a Ferrari running around with low grade gas and burning out, and half the oil it should for the engine, and just burning out on the road, right? So you have the physiological reactions from not having, what you needed, and that shows up, everywhere. And I know you've shared about basketball, growing up,
yeah.
comments from people in your life, you're not working hard enough, all of that. What's something that you would say to a young man who might have some of the, now, disclaimer, no one can like diagnose, shouldn't be diagnosing themselves with Klinefelter's just because some of these things look familiar. I'm going to
Mhm,
take a step back actually before you answer that and say,
okay.
with Klinefelter's, as with any syndrome represents many manifestations. Like it touches many aspects of one's life. And in this case, I know some of the fans, I think I hopped on there and made a response to someone. Somebody said that hormone replacement would increase your lifespan. And I just want to go ahead and say that Klinefelter syndrome, diagnosed or undiagnosed, does not present shortened life expectancy. I think people are thinking of Marfan syndrome, which is a
Mhm,
bit different. And there is a risk there. There is a bit different life expectancy. But Klinefelter's is distinct from that. And so going back to kind of the diagnosis piece, Justin had very specific characteristics. And again, some people feel that they saw that as well watching him. And so it's not just, oh, I don't have energy and I can't work out or I'm not building muscle. Those things can be pretty individual, and it's really the collective that we're looking
mhm.
at. And Justin turned out, had that. But what would you say, going back to my question, what would you say to a young, man, because this does affect male born people
Mhm.
specifically. What would you say to a young man who's has learning challenges, who just doesn't understand in school, who athletically isn't there, what kind of guidance would you offer?
Honestly, uh, speak up about it. Ask for help. It's okay to not be okay and not get it. It's okay to, if you're constantly trying, and you're not comprehending after the fifth or sixth time, speak up about it, and express the level of work that you're putting in. So if you're putting in 4 and 5 hours a day to just get this one subject, or get these specific skills down, and you're still not grasping that information, speak up about it, but talk about the specifics. And that's important, because when you talk to the right person or the right professional about it, you can say, I'll give you an example. When I was at Tuskegee, I was taking algebra and trigonometry, and I really struggled. But the only reason I passed with the B is because I would study 4 and 5 hours per day,
Wow.
after basketball practice, and the next day forget all about it.
Mm.
And when I go back to study again, it's like it will become stressful, because I'm just like, I just put all this time in. Why is it that I can't seem to remember what I just put in?
Mhm.
Day, fourth day, same thing. You know, um, so if you're having that type of struggle where you're really putting in the work and you're still not getting it, something's wrong, and speak up about it. And if you can't, if your mom is not understanding, if your dad not understanding, then talk to your teacher about it. Talk to your counselor about it. Just keep talking to the right people, because the right person is going to understand exactly what you're going through, or they're going to see this video and say, hey, I know somebody that went through similar things you're talking about. Maybe we can get him looked at. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really great, because one of the things that I see and notice about um, the healthcare system in this country. This country has a very specific system that people are inside of, and so I love that you're advocating for people to be vocal, and for young
Mhm.
men to really be their own maybe advocate, because that's what this system requires. We're not
Mhm.
here to just receive treatments or direction or diagnoses, or we're not just here to we really need to be our own, I would say, doctor, but that takes, I'm not giving medical advice. I'm just saying, to take it upon oneself to really see, like, okay. And so I can say to you, what I've noticed since you've been diagnosed, if I may, is that, you have been very, you've shifted a lot on many different levels, right? Because I've known you for a year and a half now. But one of the things that you've taken on is really that your own, what's the word? Like, you're your own advocate with this.
Mhm.
You're very much, I think, I'll be honest, I don't know if you're gonna get mad at me, but on the show there were moments where it seemed like you were totally subject to whatever anyone said. It was just because that's how you had been going through life, right? Like,
Mhm.
hoping and praying that the right outcome would happen, but not having a ton of authority in the matter. And I feel like that's something I've seen you really step into. How is that?
Mhm.
Is that is that accurate? Where you're really the leader of things. You're directing your care. You're speaking up about to your doctors right now. You're shifting relationships in your life. Like, can you talk more about that? Does that make sense? Can you talk more about your experience of, like, imagining when you were on the show and, like, how you are now?
Oh yeah. Nah, that's a great question. I'm glad you asked that. So my time on Married at First Sight, and being on TRT now, I look back and I feel like I was being myself. I was being the best version of me that I possibly knew, but the way my emotions were is that everything bothered me.
Mm,
Every single thing. And it's so weird to think about that, like, because when I say everything bothered me, you could say anything where it was joking, it would hit me almost like if it was a bullet hitting me.
mm,
Everything was like everything was offensive, everything was taken personal. Um, and so my body was constantly in fight or flight,
mm, mm.
always, nonstop. Even when I'm going to bed, I'm waking up. Somebody can look at me wrong and I'm triggered. And yes, it was a lot. So when I got the diagnosis and I did research on it and I'm asking questions, I'm learning from you, I'm learning from, my endocrinologist. I'm doing research on myself and listening to my body. And I'm like, yo, like now being on TRT, versus watching the show, you know, the emotions played a huge role in, how I was, viewed. But it makes sense now. It makes a lot of sense because if my body is not performing the way it should, I mean, all the other levels are going to be off.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense when I
Yeah,
say level?
absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So
One thing touches into another.
exactly, and so because my body wasn't performing how it should have in so many different ways and variables, it was affecting my mood, it was affecting my energy level. I remember Alexis saying that I had mood swings and that triggered me. I was like, I don't have mood swings.
Mm,
I get mad just like any other person, but when I watch myself back, I'm like, yo,
mm,
I was all over the place.
mhm.
So it, it it's just it's important because being undiagnosed, not being on, having any testosterone that's really producing where it can make me feel human and normal, I was just always on edge and I didn't realize it. So, even when I would watch back at the reunion, I remember Sasha saying I was unstable.
Mm,
When I look at it now, I'm like I was,
mm.
and it used to hurt to say that, but I was, unfortunately, but I was unstable in a way where it wasn't like threatening, it wasn't consistent. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. I definitely watched the show and in communication with you when you were filming parts of it for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
the reunion piece and all of that. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It definitely makes sense, and I think, I think you deserve it, right? I think anyone, I look at diagnoses as either if my health coach opinion is if someone listening to this or whatever receives a diagnosis and it's immediately disempowering where you feel fear, contraction, scared, oh my god, the rest of my life is X. That's not empowering, right? And so I really try to focus on, okay, what are we going to do about it? What can be done about it?
Mhm.
What's empowering about it? And
Mhm.
really taking in, and I think that's what, that's what you did, and with so much humility, I think. And one thing about you is that you are very willing to say, you messed up, and you got something wrong, or you viewed something, your perception was a little bit skewed, and looking back, and you own up to it.
Mhm.
So I think what a huge process to do that on national TV, as you know, that would be hard for me to do, a pretty private kind of a person. So the fact that you haven't kind of beat yourself up endlessly for that, and you've taken responsibility, right, for
Yeah.
some of the things that you did, even though it wasn't totally in your control. But
Mhm.
yeah, yeah. Do you
Yeah.
have anything that you think is really important about Klinefelters that we talk about right now for everyone?
I mean, there's a lot I can cover. I went through the reviews of Courtney and Eddie,
Hmm.
and I think people, like you said, people have a different perception of what they think it is.
Hmm.
Because it is a textbook case. I feel like a lot of people can't speak on it. In fact, I'm the only one, and people that actually have the syndrome can speak on it. As far as like how I'm affected. So one thing I want to be clear about when it comes to Klinefelters is that most men, I mean, every man, I hope, with Klinefelters, they can live a normal life. You know, um, you can still have a relationship. You can, still be sexual active. But everything is just hard, and I think people need to understand that. When it comes to children, yes, if I wanted to take the fertility option, I could produce kids, but it also costs thousands of dollars that I don't have. Let's be realistic, you know. And I'm not going that route. So I've seen comments where people It's like, oh, he can't have kids, this and that. No, you can. It's just a different route you have to take. Me, I specifically wanted to go on the TRT route because my body had never really experienced what I've been trying to produce all my life. Muscle mass, getting stronger on the basketball court, jumping higher, things like that. Challenging my body, to develop the way a specific physique that I want, and my issue is I'm not lazy, I can be consistent, but when you're consistent for 8 months and you're not producing results, motivation goes away. And that's what it was for me. So yeah, I just definitely want to put it out there that, I've lived the normal life. I've lived a great life. It's just things that I would do as far as work, learning, school, relationships, emotions has always just been really hard. But although it's been really hard, I still accomplished it. I would just have to give 120% consistently every day, and anything below 120%, I'll fall short. You
Mm.
know, I was class president my freshman year of college at Tuskegee. Well, I wasn't class president. I ran for class president, and funny story. I ran for class president, and it went into like overtimes, whatever the word was, but I didn't get it. But it was a good campaign, and
Like a runoff? A runoff?
yeah, it was a runoff. Yes, it was a runoff. It was with
Yeah.
this cat from New Orleans, and his was about numbers, and my slogan was, "I may be tall, but I stand for you all."
You're so cute.
So the poster wasn't even a photo of me; it was a tree with a suit on. Everybody on campus knew it was me because my nickname was Tree. But yeah, like, I live a normal life. I've lived a normal life. It's just things just has always been hard, and I've always taken things personal. You know, I've never been
Until
able to.
now. Until now?
Yeah, until now, yes. And I'm gonna explain, what I feel being on TRT compared to, being not being on it and being undiagnosed.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's so many things to kind of talk about, and obviously, I'd like for you to ask me too what I might explain kind of from my perspective about
Mhm,
Klinefelter syndrome. Obviously, you're the one that has the experience, but I have kind of some of the clinical knowledge about the whys and all
mhm.
of that. So if there's anything you feel like I can add in that sense, that would be valuable. We could
I do have a question for
do
you.
that too. Yeah.
So, what what encouraged you to want to get, to, like what really encouraged you to be like, I need to ask him something. I think
Mhm.
something's off. Like what, like
Yeah, that's a
going
great
to,
question.
yeah,
Yeah.
going to
Sorry, go
detail,
ahead.
like specific. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think I have to trace that back to meeting you, which I think you touched on with the last interview, but uh, we we met, and one of the things that, and I knew you were going to go on the show, right? So we had a great conversation, connected, and all of that. And the animals was the biggest connection
Yeah.
point. And honestly, I'd never seen my cat with a dog before, so like that with Maya.
Mhm.
So I was kind of like, oh, I hope your wife, whoever you marry is cool, because this would be cool for my cat, because this is, So when I met you, of course, I noticed the kind of incredible height, but not unusual in the sense of course, there are other people that are that height that don't
Mhm.
have Klinefelters. Um, but I did notice also the day that I met you, kind of the unique look, so to speak, that you probably got annoyed hearing about. And also,
Mhm.
you and I talk all the time. We come from very different cultures, obviously, different racial background, a little bit
Mhm.
of a different age bracket, different parts of the US, like traveled a little bit in similar circles, but or states. But I noticed, and I have a preference because of course, I found you, attractive. But once I've heard you were on the show, I was like, well, tons of people are attractive in the world. But when I met you, one of the things that kind of sparked was the look, which I don't know how to kind of just describe it, and you're changing. I mean, immediately when you started the TRT, within 3 weeks, your eyes are, because I know how hormones are huge, absolutely huge, and when you have the need or desire to take synthetic hormones, it can completely change. I mean, of course, my friends who had transitioned, things like this. So I noticed that look, and then I did on my own, you know, I didn't break any rules and do anything, but I did kind of look at your Instagram, and I was like, oh, he's cute. And then I was like, what is that? You know, so I don't want to say it's feminine because it's not, but I also believe each person is a diverse, we're not just man and woman, you know, like gender is a spectrum. And I'm a cisgender white woman who has a preference for, I'm heterosexual, but I've always liked a man who's a little bit, I don't know, special in that way. So I did kind of perceive that. I'm also super nerdy and super geeky and super intuitive. But then after kind of starting to, because we were friends for sure, you know, in the beginning, and watching you on the show, I did notice and people can be so nasty online. I don't understand this need to be so freaking nasty. You don't know these people, why are you being so nasty? But some of the comments were kind of really hit, and it's a projection, right? These people are making these nasty comments because it lives within them. And so, but I did notice, of course, kind of the emotionality, you know, the features that look like depression, perhaps. Some of the longer features that you have. Again, other people don't have Klinefelters, but testosterone can stop the growth, particularly in the legs and the femur, when it's during the pituitary gland releases and that transition happens in adolescence to manhood. And it can stop that growth. And I noticed just looked exceptionally long. The inability, I kind of knew you to be a hard worker, and the inability to gain muscle and some of the body mass, some of the you know, I feel like men sometimes have this incredible benefit to be super lean and muscly, and they just eat donuts, you know, and you're still in that age, right? Of 20. It's not like you're a 60-year-old man. You're in that age. So the fact that you could gain kind of fat easily too, like all of these things started to kind of, I don't know, add up for me, and the mood swings, of course, as you said, Alexis noticed, you know. And so I thought, gosh, his total testosterone levels cannot be right. Let's just say, cannot be fair to him, cannot be in a range that's helpful to him. So I remember when we did like the Everlywell test, right? The first time.
Oh yeah, we did do that one. I forgot about that one. Yeah.
Yeah, I bought that for you in December. And do you remember Everlywell is online test you can do for, I'm sure everyone knows it, and it was like, you know, green and then orange and red. And you were like so far. You remember? And you were so annoyed do you remember being annoyed when you got that result?
Yeah.
You were just like, ugh. And I was like, oh gosh. And I still didn't know it was Klinefelters until a few weeks. And then I was like, oh, it's Klinefelter, you know. So I hope that answers your question. It's a long answer, but.
No, that's I like that. That was a great answer. How did you feel? So you went through this journey with me. We know how the first doctor was. Talk about how the very first physician reacted when you brought it to his attention.
Yes, I'm realizing a lot of people are going to be watching this, so I'm kind of filtering what I would normally say just to you and me or someone else privately. But let's just say I think that physicians are taxed quite considerably to operate in the system that's been devised in this country for healthcare. And this guy clearly really liked you. I think all of your doctors like basketball, so you see a tall black guy, and stereotypes come hurling out, right? So he certainly wanted to kind of connect on that level, and you're unique in the sense of, you know, we had the Everlywell result. Here's my cat. Ooh, over here. Kitty. So we had that result as some kind of ammo. It's impossible to go into a primary care physician's office, given the strain, everything on them and their perspective, and say, this is wrong with me, fix me, unless you had something. And so we had something, right? So we went in, and you had the basketball element. And so he was, you know, wanting to kind of connect with you. And I'm this white woman who am I? I don't have an MD or an ND. Well, ND, but I don't have a D. He was a DO, a doctor of osteopathy. So I kind of just navigate subtly. And I think you got annoyed me because before TRT, it was easy to get annoyed. So I tried to manage the conversation, because if I'm seen as an outsider, out the door I can go, right? So it's like I have to make sure I'm in rapport. So initially, of course, he wanted to go to the MRI route. It was very clear that definitely you had a tumor in your brain that would be affecting the release of testosterone, the production of it.
Yep, I remember him saying that.
Yeah. And so that's actually kind of rare too, to be honest. I mean, it's just not rare to meet a 35-year-old male identified and male born cis man who has T that's that low. It's just not that common, right? So of course it makes sense to say, well, there's a tumor. And then of course the treatment would be some drugs and some surgery, which, me, that's like not my fun thing. However, had you had it, absolutely. I just knew that wasn't right. So I did suggest, as you said in the last interview, that I think we're looking at Klinefelters. I can't remember how I said it, but I needed it to be out there. And he said, oh, that's like meeting a zebra walking down the street. Like super dismissive, super like, and I'm looking at him like, I get that you're stressed. I get that you have this schedule. I get all of that, but we'll come back to you and find out. So do you remember what happened? And then Justin, I'm going to put you on the spot. You threw me under the bus because, oh, doctor, it was like, oh, doctor, oh, my girlfriend's wrong. Actually, I have this thing, right? And so I got told on the way home how, not Klinefelters. Black people don't have Klinefelters. I was like, okay. And at that point, I'm willing to surrender my ego. Absolutely. So I was like, yes, let's, this has to happen. Get an MRI. Justin was scared. Do you want to say anything about that portion of it?
So yes, I was terrified about the MRI, because I'm just like, what if I do have a tumor? Like, and even though he said it's it's non-surgery, some shit like that he said, but he was like, there's nothing to worry about. And I was just like, but like, bro, you still have to cut it inside my head and remove it. Like that's terrifying.
He would have put you on the medicine first, is what he meant. Yeah.
Okay. But nah, it was terrifying, but I was just like, I'm gonna accept whatever it is. I'm just gonna accept it. At this point, it's out of my control. I've been living with it, if that was the case. So I just went in with a positive mindset. And one of the things I'm learning, on my spiritual journey is that what you feed your mind, you feed your body. So if you're thinking negative, but yet you're still trying to do something positive, but that's not where your mind is thinking, then that's going to affect your body. So to give you an example, like when somebody say they have cancer, their body shut down because they're so sad and they don't think that there's anything that they can do. But I truly believe that you can heal yourself. It's all about your thinking. So when I went and got the MRI, I went in, I was just like, hey, we're going to accept whatever it is. I whisper a prayer to God. I went in, and when I got the results, it wasn't that. So, I was still questioning, like, I just couldn't, it just wasn't Klinefelter's at all to me. I was like, it's too rare. I would have known this. And so I think it was when I got my T levels back and my shit said 50. Well, it was 57 and 52.
56 and but we started with your free testosterone. That's the Everlywell test. That's it for anyone listening. That's a good test because it's showing how much your body is utilizing of the hormone, really. So that's where we started. So then we jumped to different tests because then there's bioavailable testosterone. Also, there's just other markers. Yeah.
So, yeah. Where was I?
Just that when you got the results back about the T. Now, to be clear to everyone listening, I think what you're saying is that when we went to the primary care, of course, we brought the result from the Everlywell. This person wanted to go towards the MRI. Justin got the MRI. But in addition to that, there were several more blood markers to take a look at. Because if there's a brain tumor, it's not just free testosterone to look at. There's also, you want to see how the thyroid's performing, and you want to see how the pieces of what the brain produces. are FSH, TSH. They're just other markers. So in addition to getting the MRI, right, that doctor also got you more blood work for your teeth. Yeah.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes.
I'm just connecting the dots.
No, I love it when you start nerding out. That's very attractive. Sorry, guys. This is why I'm crazy about this woman.
Oh,
Um,
babe.
you nerd out. You speak the same language as every physician we saw, and I'm just you do. In fact, can you speak about that? How you utilize your privilege. In order for my voice to be heard.
Yeah. Well, I will say that I am not trained in the Western world of disease, the Western medical system. I don't really ever use it, to be honest. I'm holistic. So, in that sense, I had to learn kind of a lot of things. So, in learning some of the pieces of Western medicine, I call it, I also use my intuition to see how I could utilize my privilege, as Justin's saying. I mean, our relationship, there's several things I think I've extended to you that I hope will serve you. One of them being, adding you to my line of credit and as an authorized user, right? Like the pieces that came so easily to me, being white, growing up, the way that I did, I came from a hardworking kind of rural background, but with privilege. I mean, I don't think my father was able to kind of get to where he was without being white and the ability to own land. And there's a lot of things that got extended to him so that he could kind of build what he has. So at any rate, I don't know specifically how you want me to answer that, but it's all about reading people. So the all of the doctors except for one that Justin's seen were not white. We are in San Diego, California. They're of color. They were none of them were black, but they are Middle Eastern, Indian, that. So I did actually, now I think of it, I did say to your first primary care doctor, I did say, because there's an arrogance that comes from the medical community for sure. And if you want to slam me online for saying that, that's okay. But there is an arrogance, and sometimes they need to be reminded. And all due respect, I mean, they are studying, and they're studying the body as a thing, as an object. It's not, but they're studying science and organic chemistry and all the things that I don't study that stuff. So they have a tendency to forget bedside manners. So this doctor did say, like, Justin, do you remember this? He was like, how did you never like check your T levels? How did you like never do this? And I came right in. Do you remember what I said? I said, well, do you remember what I said? I said, well, he grew up in Alabama. Like, he's got what he's got. He's had what he's had. Mm-hmm. I did hit him hard with something around the racial.
No, I remember you saying that.
Cultural, yeah.
Yeah. No, you
what did
definitely.
I say?
You went into detail about you talked about my background. You talked about that. I mean, you were actually very direct with him.
Yeah, because I was like,
fact,
dude, like, don't, like, let's not do this right now. Like, let's not shame the patient.
Yeah. Nah, you basically explained to him the type of care that you get and I get, and how it's different. You created that perspective for him where it was like he had to kind of take the back seat and be like, oh shit,
I think he didn't like me from that. So then when the Klinefelters piece came later, I think it was, I definitely tried to toe the line, but I'm not one to hold my tongue when it comes to, I strongly believe in, I'm not flighty and out of touch, but I do strongly believe in humanity and treating humans regardless of gender, race, sexuality, any of it. With respect and understanding. So I do think that, yeah, he was a little bit thrown. But let's talk about what happened when the MRI came back, and then we can talk about your amazing other doctor.
Yeah. When the MRI came back, I remember we had a phone call with him, and the ego that he had before compared to his tone of voice afterwards was very humbling. In fact, I remember giving you the phone, and I was like, I give her permission, to speak on my behalf, etc. And he was like, hey, now that we've got the MRI and it's not a tumor, you asked for specific things that you wanted, and he was like, okay, 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 okay. He gave you everything, and I was like, if that had been me, I'd have been going in circles. But I feel like because he was wrong, it humbled him,
Mm-hmm.
and he had to take that route. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, I just remember that day. I was kind of in a coaching space with Justin because mostly he was annoyed at me most of the time because now I'm taking him on this whole journey, scaring him that he has a brain tumor when he wasn't living his life okay before. And I'm like, hang in there, like life can be so great. And Justin and I have very different personalities. I'm always about like what's possible. And Justin's like, this is what I know. And like, I'm going to plan for this. Like, very kind of different just ways of approaching life. And so he was 45 minutes late to call us.
Yeah, he
And
was. I was pissed about that.
you were so pissed. And I was like trying to manage like, okay, Justin, you got to be on this call, man. Come on, like snap, stop. Like let's do this. And then he called and he was mumbling and we couldn't hear him. And he was the end of his day and he sounded miserable that day. And he's like, well, the MRI is clear. I think maybe, because it was so MRIs can be contrast or non-contrast. And so sometimes they'll order kind of a dye that you have to have injected. And so it can show up the way that it travels, that material travels through the body. You could show differently on the MRI. And so he started talking about, now let's go get a contrast, because he's so sure that he's right. He's ignoring all of Justin's physical characteristics, Justin's life story to put it all together. It's very like this. And he's like, and I'm like, no, like I said, you know what? Interim, to his credit, he had submitted through your insurance approvals for an endocrinologist, genetic counseling, because that's something I mentioned the first time. So he sent those off like, she's not going to get this for him. This isn't going to happen. They all came back, yes, because Justin's numbers just didn't make sense. So he got approved. So I used that as ammo on the call. I said, well, now that it's negative, I think we're going to go to I kind of one-upped him a little just because he was a jerk. Like, I'm a nice person, but I was like, well, I think we're going to go to the endocrinologist because I think that's a waste of time. And he was like, oh, okay, yeah. And he was kind of like that. And then I was like, again, I'm going to bring up the Klinefelters. And he was like, oh yeah, okay, well, I'll send that over. Like, he was just very much like, okay, I'm gonna get off the phone. I was wrong, bye. Like, he was like it felt like he was ashamed, which I didn't want him to be, but don't strong arm the situation when you have all the control here, sir, because you're wrong. You don't know what it's like for this man, Justin, to live this way. There's a lot of people that suffer in this country with conditions that it's just unacceptable for me. There's the timeline, there's the litigation behind all this process. We have such a weird system. And so that's kind of how that call went, Justin, I think. And then you get the referral. We got the referral and got the appointment for the next doctor.
Yep. And so that's when we went to the endocrinologist. And at this point, I've already accepted that I have Klinefelters, and I was like, I remember telling you, I was like, okay, I'm looking at, the characteristics, and
because mentally you're saying the result blood hadn't come back yet.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Mentally, I was already accepting it, before the results had came. And I remember telling you, I think we were on the phone and I was looking at just images. And I mean, realistically, I'm a man. I do have an ego at times. I got pride at times. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, all right, Justin, it's time. It's just you and me. It was myself. And I was like, just accept the fact that a lot of these physical characteristics I saw in myself, but I didn't want to say it. I'm like, nah, that's not me, especially, how the shape of the pecs were, for a man, the tire of like that body, that not body, that the stomach fat,
midsection.
Yeah, the midsection, and I was just looking at different characteristics, and I was just, then you learn about the mental part, and then you learn about like just so much detail, and everything was just hitting me. And I was like, well, life has been like this, I do have these characteristics, I have struggled to, put on muscle mass no matter how hard I work, it was impossible.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember just kind of getting myself prepared for the results to come back to say, hey, you do have Klinefelter syndrome. You was born with an extra chromosome,
Mm-hmm.
or the other way around. So when we went to the endocrinologist, like you guys got along so well. Like in fact, I felt like he enjoyed, being in there because we had done all the work. We had all our ducks in a row. We had every physician we went to and tests we had taken. I felt like an old person because we had like a little binder of everything, even the approvals from the insurance. But what was really refreshing is that you guys started speaking the same language and both of you guys were on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
Before you even mentioned Klinefelters,
Yeah.
he was just there. And so when you explain different details about me, and my blood work and my T levels and my free testosterone, it's like almost you guys said it at the same time but did it. And so when he came back in with his what's her what she he was
The attending that was
the
on that
attending,
day.
yeah. Yes, he came back in with the attending, and she was looking at me like she was just curious. I knew something was off because I was just like, "Oh shit," And that's when he was like, "We're going to get a karyotype
Mm-hmm.
done."
You
And
know what?
I
Remember
remember
what I did?
you jumped out your seat,
Woo!
and like right there, I was just like, "Yeah." The fact that, and it wasn't that I believed him over you, you
Mm.
know. It was more because that was his specialty. So I was just like, damn, she right again. By the way, guys, she's right about a lot of stuff. Almost everything is annoying. But I'm just more of a proof guy. So even when I'm wrong, I admit it. So just to put that out there. But yeah.
Yes, that's what I was saying about you earlier. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I know everything, but if I do weigh in and I'm like, "Hey, Justin," then I have a lot of confidence, right? But I'm
Yeah.
not I don't know all of the things. It's just when I'm speaking about something, I'm like, "Yes." Yeah, I think that human being, I won't say his name, but what a beautiful man that man is. And I'm a very
He's awesome.
spiritual person, and I saw a few things he was wearing, and that reflected a similar background culturally that I'm familiar with. This doctor was
Hmm.
is Indian, and just wow, what a different experience than the primary care, right? Because
Hmm.
I remember spending an hour and a half in that room, and it was just so beautifully like orchestrated from the divine, I guess, because he was like, okay, so tell me what's going on here. And then I kind of like looked at Justin like, can I do this? Can I like do the spiel? And he was like not in a good mood that day, but I was like, this is the home run here. And then I just kind of like, I've never seen a specialist. I don't go to the doctor really ever, but I have been, and I've been with other people. I haven't really seen a specialist so open and humble. And, he said, tell me what's going on here. It was just like surrendered all of his, training and education and everything. And then as we progressed, and I kind of made a really compelling case. And I remember he had this stack of blood work, and he just kept, because I know what was going on in his mind. His mind was, oh God, this is Klinefelter's. And he's a resident. So Klinefelter's is underdiagnosed, but still, pretty rare. And I knew it was going to be his first patient, so
Yeah.
as a physician, I think especially him, he's used to dealing
Hmm.
with, lifestyle induced diseases, a lot of
Hmm.
overweight patients or patients with viral load that are causing thyroid problems and thyroid medication or diabetes medication. So not to belittle those conditions because they're serious, but they're not caused by a chromosomal difference. They're not caused by an inherent body shift in the way that
Hmm.
Justin was. So he was poring over all of the papers, and just he kept looking at them like, can this woman be right? Like there was a piece to him just like, like, is this, and you could see him kind of leaning into the belief of like Klinefelter's. And then I remember I saw this because I think Justin was just in it. And I said, or he said, Justin, what's life been like for you? And I just remember this like also really healing moment, right? Where
Yeah.
it was almost like a tear because like nobody had looked at you holistically and said like,
Yeah.
gosh, how are you, man? You know, and every question he kept asking, I was like, Klinefelter's question, great question, great question. And Justin hit it out of the park as far as inching him towards the karyotype. The karyotype's a really expensive test. And so, of course, there has to be
How much is that test? Ballpark. How much do you think that test was?
I mean, United States system's really purely, I would say, driven by money, you know, in kind of in contrast to countries like Europe, where they're this is a personal opinion, where Europe is a bit more, they're a bit more research based and they're a bit more causation based. So they're looking to kind of cure things. And the United States is much more driven towards like, get them the stuff and get them the things and get them the surgery and get them the drugs. So I don't know in the US, but I can tell you an estimate, you know, probably I'm guessing anywhere from $7,000 to $14,000.
Just that one single test.
Yeah. And so that single test is probably a complex one for sure. I mean, highly specific scientists, science is not, hard science is not my thing, but to take blood, right? And they didn't take a lot of blood that time, right, babe? They didn't take a lot.
I mean, it took
that draw. Yeah, that karyotype draw, because you got so many draws, but that one was, and to break it down to the point where you're looking at cells, the body has like trillions of cells, and they die, and new ones are produced, and to pick 5 of them, and then to keep breaking that down till you can see 1 through 26 chromosomes and what they look like that's a lot of effort. There's science, technology, but yeah, 7,000 to 14,000 is probably my estimate.
Yeah.
And so to get that ordered that day with that really caring physician, and I remember, Justin, you had to do a physical exam with him. That was really, really, you know, I know
first time I let a man touch my balls.
Yeah.
First time. I actually said that to him. I was like, "This is the only time I said, this is the only time that it's acceptable for a man to touch my balls." He started laughing.
Yeah, and you know, and again, you brought up earlier privilege and also our, you know, our differences, and so I kind of was like, okay, what do I do? Do I stay? Do I leave? You know, and you wanted me to stay. No, you are staying here and witnessing this. But I remember how much bedside manner he had, right? After he performed it. And he was like, thank you, Justin. Like, he was so like, what a great man this guy is.
Man, I love that guy. You know, we made it clear he's going to be my doctor at least. We know for sure for the next 13 months. So I'm grateful for him.
Yes, he's staying there. So yeah, that was a long piece, but I think for those who are interested, you know, that is sometimes the process. And I think, I don't know what the average, I think it's 18 months to 24 months on average for a diagnosis like Klinefelter's. And Justin was able to get diagnosed within 3 months.
Yeah. How would you encourage, you know, somebody that's going through what I was going through, that's going into that era where they're going to start going to the doctor? I know for me, I encourage them to do as much work themselves, you know, kind of like how we did, so they're not going into circles, because I don't think we would have got the same results. Well, I think we would have got the same results, but I think it would have taken a lot longer if we hadn't done work ourselves. So where would you encourage, you know, the audience, you know, somebody that's dealing with the same thing to start? Where should they start at?
Yeah, I think that one primary thing, and Justin and my friends will say I'm a bit different. I'm Justin, what do you say about me? You've never met somebody like me. Like, and my friend calls me an alien. Like, I just ran into a friend yesterday, and I was in Colorado yesterday, who I hadn't seen in a long time, and she was like, "Oh yeah, you are alien," you know. So like, so I'm a little bit different, but I personally, in the way I look at working with people, is that the body is phenomenal. Okay, the body is absolutely exceptionally phenomenal. It's the most advanced, sophisticated supercomputer ever. It can do anything. And so the number one thing is to kind of develop value systems, I think, for yourself when it comes to working with your own body. We work with our own bodies every day. We go to the bathroom, we work out, we take our dog for a walk, we have sex, we eat food, you know, we drink water, we drink alcohol, whatever. And for me, I know the body can do so much. So I don't believe a lot of what I'm told about the drug commercials and my body and aging. I don't subscribe to that. I'm not saying the influence isn't somewhere in my subconscious, definitely, but I don't actively talk about these things as inevitable. And I think that when you're facing symptoms that are unexplainable, before one kind of surrenders themselves, gives themselves to a doctor to just let them be bat around the system. Now, I'm speaking with privilege, obviously, because I've done a lot of training. I've spent money on education for this. I'm white. I'm college educated. I have all of this going for me. But let me extend that to you and say that there still is an opportunity to say, I'm going to develop a set of like guidelines on what I know is true for me. And I'm going to communicate with my body and I'm going to educate myself. I'm not going to diagnose myself. I'm not saying run to 1MD and add up the things and go, that's me. But I'm going to start to have that relationship and communication. And I'm going to make friends, whether that's, sometimes it's hard to find a community online, like Reddit or subreddit, whatever, groups or Facebook, where you feel empowered, because a lot of people just like are so tired of their diagnosis and they can't seem to get to the other side. But I am saying find like-minded thinkers. Worst case scenario, you find someone else who's uplifting. And I don't mean like negative. I mean uplifting, who can support you, go with you to the doctor. And so what I find is the more positive you can be, still grounded in reality, but like really looking at, I'm going to get through this. There is an answer. There is a solution. My body's not weak. It's not pathetic. It's not breaking off in pieces. The body is absolutely freaking incredible. And most of the problem with it is that we overwhelm it with shit that makes it impossible to function, because the liver, right side of our body here under our rib cage, I mean, it does everything for us, our emotions, all of our toxic relationships, our childhood trauma, the food we ate yesterday, sugar. I mean, you name it, it's constantly working. And so it might not seem that amazing, the body, because we're not living a life that's in alignment with that. So I say all that, there's a lot of pieces there. I will say, it's easy to say, well, I'm speaking from privilege. Absolutely. And I made a lot of sacrifices to continue this mission of discovering how possible it is. Now, going back to you, Justin, to answer that question. In Justin's case, Justin and I got into a few conversations with people who were like, well, just fix the chromosome, just take out the extra X, right? Because if you are a male born person, you have the XY, and if you have the female, you have the XX. And so Justin has the XXY, which is a mathematical split that mathematically every so many cell divisions in conception of creating a human life, there's going to be that difference. And so Justin has that in his cells, and those are how his cells are functioning. And so somebody's like, oh, just take the extra X out. And it was like, well, first of all, that's 3 trillion cells. It's absolutely impossible. I am for root cause, but in Justin's case, because normally if you had another problem, and not that Klinefelter's a problem, but if you had other issues before you're diagnosed, I would be like, let's do holistic, 100%. But I mean, that is the treatment is TRT. There is no other, that it is what it is. You were born that way in a special, and there's a lot of, I could talk a lot about the things I love about you being Klinefelters. I think that,
that's actually, let's talk about that. Yeah. What do you love about me, having Klinefelters?
Yeah. Well, the first thing, of course, is that the look that you have. And I think, knowing I've smiled and laughed at a few of the DMs you get from ladies, but, I think a lot of women like that look too, just a slight difference, I mean, men I've dated in the past sometimes have looked a little bit, I don't want to use the word feminine. I'm hesitating to go, I'm a man. That's like what you say.
Oh, good. I mean,
you are a man, but it's a little bit, so on a physical level, like I find that attractive, but deeper than that, and more importantly, Justin has a really keen ability to sense and feel that most men kind of bore me. No offense, but there's just me, eat me. Just kidding. I love men, but I mean, like, there our culture breeds kind of a certain, like, be a man, I'm a man. And I think Justin is a man, but gender is not just, and you are a man, you're not non-binary or trans. But I think the extra X gives you a little bit of, like, subtlety and flexibility that that clearly women are attracted to, and um, really helps. And I can say, to you, come on, like, feel this, like, from my perspective. Like, can you see where I'm? And you really do, and you have a empathy with. I can't say it's all Klinefelters, right? Because you are who you are, but with
Yeah.
animals, that is really huge. Because obviously
Mhm.
my baby here is my baby. I don't have a human child, and you're so good with her and loving. And so I think that you identify as a man and you are very strong masculine, but you also have these kind of, like, sensitive pieces. I love women, and I like to be like, that's because you got that extra X, woohoo. And
Yes, you
also,
do. Gosh.
yeah,
You
and
stand
also
for women, girl.
I
Sorry.
do. I love women. And also, I don't want to have children. So it's been hard. Before I met you, I was on dating apps, and there's a strong pressure. And a lot of women feel pressure to have kids by a certain age, but I found a lot of men that put me on the spot, and I was like, I'm 36, or like, this is not this doesn't feel good for me. I cannot commit to this right now. And so I I know that, that's been maybe hard for you to kind of get the sperm analysis back, and of course you could have gone down the road of, like, let's try. I can't remember the medical term for it, but the doctor that would, like, a fertility endocrinologist kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Um, and so I do love that. And I know that's hard because that's you, but
Mhm.
it feels really good to know that we're not just in a relationship planning to have children. That
Yeah.
it's an unpopular view, but it's how
Mhm.
I feel, with respect to you and what you've gone through. And I know that must have been hard to get that result.
Honestly, it wasn't. For I think my siblings, my brother, my sister, my mom, they know me really well when it comes to, like, children. When I was younger, I wanted 5 girls because I wanted to be like, daddy's little girl.
Yeah.
And as I got older, I got into my career. I started understanding corporate America. One of my strongest traits is loyalty, but I sort of put that expectation off on other people, friends, relationships, coworkers, colleagues, companies, and so honestly, it wasn't until I moved to California, where my mindset really changed. And people don't know, when you live in California, it's a grind. If you want a home, it's a two-person income. And I realized that having kids takes a lot of work. I don't have the patience. And the type of education I want to provide for my kids, I can't. I want my kids to have the best of everything, the best healthcare, the best schools, the best tutors, and I can't provide that, and companies aren't loyal anymore, and they'll lay you off 30 years of, being employed. It's not like how our parents used to be. And so, you know, I wasn't disappointed when they said I couldn't have kids. I was more so disappointed because that choice was taken away from me. And
Mm,
so it really made me empathize with women, that get pregnant and they can't have an abortion if they live in Texas. It's like that, right? It's their body, but they're not in control of it. So it just kind of confirmed, that, hey, you can't have them anyway. So just live your best life. But at one point I did want them, but now, like I said, I'm okay. I'm okay with just living my life, living on a lot of land with you, a house full of animals, and just being able to kind of pick up and go. I think we talked about that before, coming home to this beautiful home, eating dinner and be like, you know what? Let's go fly here. Let's leave next week or let's leave in 2 days. And you can't do that with having children. And in fact, my next episode, I'm gonna have a guest on because he's my cousin from my hometown. We was talking about the pressure of having kids at a young age, and people are always asking, when you gonna have kids? When you have never, So it's refreshing for me too to know that I don't have that pressure from you,
Mm-hmm.
to want kids or have to have a deadline, because sometimes it's not about that. I do feel like I'm not gonna say I do, but in a way, I'll be honest. I feel like I may have been cheated with life, because I lived undiagnosed for so long, and now that I have the energy to just want to go to the gym. I have the energy to go run 2 miles if I wanted to. All these things are happening for me that I didn't really experience before, where I really don't want kids now because I feel like I missed out on life.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah.
because my body wasn't getting what it needed. And now, being on TRT, I'm calm. I can regulate my emotions. I think before I act. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I reflect. I wake up happy every morning. Like I jump out of bed like I'm possessed. Like let's do it. I'm able to focus and multitask and actually get results that I need. And so all this stuff is like happy. It makes me happy. I'm like, yo, this is good stuff. I'm getting the recognition that I want, etc. I'm living my best life, and I'm only 3 months in. Imagine when I'm 12 months in, 24 months, 3 years from now, where I'll be. And so it'd be unfair to me to have a child when I haven't even fully lived life correctly, so.
Yeah, unfair to you, I think, because parenting
Correct. Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah.
is the hardest. It's amazing. It is hard job. I am not a parent. I do know how hard it is, and I think it would be to you that commitment. Other than, oh man, what
You
where's
breaking
my
up.
life? I'm breaking up.
Yeah, there you go.
What's the last thing I said?
All of it broke up.
I was saying you said it would be unfair, and I'm saying unfair to you
Yes.
because parenting is a huge job. And so you can wake up one day being, a father and dedicating your life to this child that you would love beyond love, but what happens to you getting to have that experience of life that you're getting right now?
No,
And
you're right.
what kinds of things are you doing right now, Justin?
I'm
That are like that we didn't see on the show and Married at First Sight, as far as like the new, what do you get to experience and do?
well, I'm happy I get the experience, regulated emotions. It feels good, like I said, my body's not in fight or flight. I work out every day, I work out in the gym 3 days a week, and 2 days at
Are you
home.
going to clubs?
No, I went to the club one time. Oh my God. You went out of town.
Hey,
You
I
went
think
out of
it's
town.
great. No, listen, I've gone through a lot of years of a major gut issue I couldn't get to the root of, and I didn't feel like doing anything other than getting in my bed when I wasn't working. So I don't think it's a bad thing to feel like, hey, I want to go listen to some music,
Yeah,
What are you doing? You don't like that I brought that up?
I don't mind at all.
Okay,
I mean, yeah, a lot of my interest is changing. Don't get me wrong, the club's not something I could do every weekend.
right.
Maybe like a once a month thing, maybe an every other month. I wouldn't go by myself, I just had fun with Miguel. Um, I had to work the next day, but it was fun. Yeah,
Okay, last night you said I went 3 times the past week.
we ain't got to talk about that.
Okay, well,
Look, all I
anyway,
said
moving
was,
on. The point is not to give you a hard time. The point is to say I think you should definitely embrace life. And you've been talking about Southeast Asia. I've traveled quite a bit. I've been to probably 12 countries and had that experience. And so, talking about not having kids, one of the benefits, of that is that, like you said, get to pick up and take off. So I'm all for experiences. I don't have any insecurity about us at all.
yeah.
So I'm not jealous. I'm not worried. I'm not upset. I've done a lot of work on myself, and I'm perfectly content being by myself. But of course, since meeting you, I'm totally like embracing all of this. But I was single for 10 years, and I know who I am. So when you get to that level of confidence about yourself, your relationship, the person that you attract and build a relationship with, it's, for me, it doesn't threaten. There's nothing about it that's threatening to me.
Yeah. All right. So before we get ready to wrap up, what how should people reach out to you if they have questions, regarding like holistic health? Oh, you forgot.
Well,
There we go.
Justin started building a website for me. Right?
Good.
You're putting me on the spot now, huh? Okay, I see
All right.
how this goes.
Just a little bit. Just a little bit.
Wow. All right. See, this is karma coming right
But
back to
but
me.
your website is not published yet, so they can't go
Correct.
to it.
Correct.
But I mean,
I know. I know. Well, I will. Okay, so I'll say that right now, I have an Instagram account. I have a holistic also account. Actually, that's a good way. Let's do that, because my private account, I get a lot of like Married at First Sight kind of trolls. I'm not sure if they're all trolls, but
yeah.
I was private before Married at First Sight stuff, because I got weird requests from people, and I was like, this is like weird. But I have an Instagram account. Let's start there. It's the Healing from Within. Yes, you can reach out to me there, and pretty soon I'll be announcing the kind of a more professional front to reach me. But I will say there's been some obstacles and some resistance in the way of being very formally open to this work with others, and it's been a long time in process for me. And I'm I just have been a little bit hesitant and a little bit unsure of exactly how I'm structuring my business, but I'm definitely available. The Healing from Within on Instagram.
All right. All right. Well, Caitlin, thank you so much for joining. Thank you for just being open and asking questions that people may, want to hear about. I would love to have you again. I think, maybe we can have a part two, a few months from now, with me being on, TRT for a little bit longer. And, we can talk about the changes, compared to what people have seen to now, and just talk about those little details, experiences, where it may not always be all good. And it's important to let people know that's going through that journey with me and with us. Just all the courts that come with it, because sometimes I think from the outside looking in, things can just look like it's all good because I'm producing new things, new body physiques, just new features, just everything, so yeah, I'd love to have you again, but thanks for joining.
Yeah, babe, of course. Thank you for having me, and I'll see you soon.
All right. Talk to you guys later. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And if you have any questions, just shoot it in the comments. I love to discuss, what you guys thoughts and what you learned from this video. And if you have any questions, shoot it in the comments. Talk soon. Peace.